normal. Having to sit down and say, you know what, you didn't tick me off and I need to go somewhere and I'll come. That is absolutely normal. You can't put two grown folks in a household, throwing some children and a pet, and think that something is not going to blow up at some point. Um, but when I say not normal, I'm talking about that just going at each other, screaming, hollering, yelling, going at each other. And like I said, then you want to make dirty comments to each other where you hit below the belt. The first time you hit below the belt, you need to take a step back. Therapy needs to come into play. Y'all need to really think about it, work it out. If you're still hitting below the belt and it's 3, 4, 5, 20, 25, 30, 40 years later, then you're about 20 years too late when it comes to we need to go our separate ways. Because clearly the two of you are not meant to be under the same roof. And I don't necessarily think that divorce needs to be the first thing on your lips or separation needs to be first thing on your lips, because that is who I am as a person, and that's not always the best thing, and I can admit to that. Walking away from people is not always the best way to handle things. But I do believe that it is more toxic for you, especially now if you don't have any kids and you don't mind, in toxic relationships is okay with you. Hey, do what you do. But when you have children in your home and that toxic relationship is over your kids, you are now being irresponsible because you are taking and putting that relationship, whether you realize it or not, over the mental health and well-being of that child. That is now irresponsible. When you know you and the woman you live with, or you and the man you live with, just cannot get it right or cannot get along, but you refuse to go your opposite ways because, well, we made a vow to be here and we just gonna live through this hell together, you are dragging your children along with you. That's irresponsible. We gotta do better. And if this is a relationship that you really want, in a situation that you really want, then work on it. I got friends who go to marriage counseling even during good times. And they go to retreats and all types of stuff because it's important for them to work on it. But, you know, all of us don't believe in that, and we really should. We need to believe in therapy a whole lot more. And getting marriage counseling does not mean that your marriage is broken. Like I said, I know people who their marriages are doing their thing, they're flourishing. They still go. Why do you think they actually like each other? Because they still go. They understand, they're learning how to deal with each other. And they're understanding that it's important for them to know how to deal with each other. Like I said, you bring this person with their background into a household, you bring this person with their background into a household, you throw them under the same roof, and you throw in some children, and you throw in schedules and jobs, and the next thing you know, yeah, something's about to is bound to blow. So they go and they learn how to deal with it. And then let's not add to the fact that if you're up in my age range, which means your parents are much older, people are starting to lose their parents. Parents are passing away, things are happening. That's even more stressful the longer you've been together and now you're starting to lose family and you're having to depend on each other. That just adds more stress to the situation. Yes, even in good times, you still want to have, whether it's your pastor or whomever it is, you still want to have that place where you can go to where it's neutral territory and you can sit down and say, this is how I feel about the situation. Well, this is how I feel about the situation. And we're good. Okay, well, we're great. And you go on about your business. I like to do check-ins. And every now and then it drives the man crazy, but he understands why I do it. Hey, you. So, you good? How you feeling? You know, let's talk about it. What are you thinking right now? And it's not a constant, but every now and then it's just a, hey, I need to talk to you in this corner real quick. What's going on with you? Here's what's going on with me. We good? We can continue to live our lives. Because I don't want to be blindsided by somebody's rage because you've been mad at me for the last 3 weeks because I ate the last brownie and you really wanted that brownie. And you didn't want to tell me that you were mad that I ate the brownie. And then one day I go to do something and I accidentally leave the milk sitting on the counter and you ready to chop my head off over left out milk. Like, Come on now. And I'm sure there are people listening to me who are laughing at me right now because it's like, is she serious? Yes, I've seen people blow up over milk. So we have to do better at working through our issues, starting with our issues with our parents. Because I know y'all are probably listening like, she done went from all the way there to all the way over here. I told y'all, this is Conversations with Elodie. And this is actually how I hold conversations. I may start in one place and I have to dip over here somewhere. I'm going to run back to where I started, but I need to tell you all of this over here before I make it back to where I started. It'll make sense at some point. And if it doesn't, listen to it again. It'll make sense eventually. But like I said, this is why I'm saying you have to deal with your parents first. If you can. If they're still around. And if they're not, then deal with a therapist about your situation with your parents. But it has to come out somewhere. Like, you have to take the time to deal with it and talk about it. And then let it go. So that you can move on as a better person. And you can move on with peace. But as you're doing it, understand that they really were, in most cases, they really were just doing the best they could. They were doing what they knew to do. Now, there is a group of people in here that know they weren't doing the best they could. They were just crappy people. You know, there are some people who have come up and one of the parents isn't there, and it happens more often than not that it's the father that is out of the home than the mother. Now, for people who don't realize this, there are situations where mama walks away. I know a few. But most of the time, it's the dad has walked out of the house. Now, you also have to understand that in situations where the father is not in the home, there isn't just a cut and dry, he was a deadbeat daddy. You know, because something else we like to do is we like to tell our kids what we want them to believe, but we don't ever give them the full picture of what's really going on. How many mamas listening to my voice actually put daddy out and then told the kids, oh, well, he left. He ain't leave. You kicked him out, threatened him if he ever came back, and you've been holding child support over his head ever since. Like, we have to do better with that too. You may dislike him, but if he is a good father, let him be a good father and just dislike him. Respect the fact that he's a good dad, that he wants to be there for his kids, that he's taking care of his children, that he's paying the child support, that he's doing what needs to be done. And the two of y'all just didn't work out. And you go on. Because with my girls and their stepfather, it had gotten to a point where he was still being a good father to them. I didn't like him. I didn't have to. He was still being a good father to them. So as long as he was still being a good father to them, I could dislike him all I wanted to. Whenever we would speak to each other, we were still cordial with each other because he was still being a good father to the girls. Now, when he got to a point where he was no longer being a good father, now I can dislike you wholeheartedly, 110%, for me and them. Because now you've crossed the line into treating my children a certain type of way. She doesn't play that. But as long as he is being a good parent to those children and he is taking care of his family, he's being ladies, stop with this whole, I'm just going to withhold child from him. You ain't going to never see this baby again. That just backfires on you. Because at some point when that kid gets older, children are not stupid. They pay attention to things that you don't think they pay attention to. You think they hear the screaming and the yelling and the out loud. No. Kids have a way of zooming in on that subtle behind the scenes type stuff that you didn't think they were paying attention to. And at some point, that kid is going to look you square in the face and remind you, I happen to know for a fact that daddy didn't leave here because he wanted to. It was because of what you did. You do not want to have to get to a point in your life where that day comes. You don't want that for yourself. And if he's a bad father, let him show that he's a bad father. Because at that point, they will understand. My mama did everything she could. You weren't there. And that's cool. Because at least I had her. And I'm going to continue to have her. I'm going to continue to be there for her and take care of her. And you can bounce. Because, see, it's something about deadbeat parents that as soon as that child starts doing good, deadbeat wants to show back up. Now deadbeat wants attention because the kids are doing great. Deadbeat is probably broke. But at least they will know that this wasn't your doing. And do everything you can to protect your babies. Now, like I said, I also know some single fathers out there. So I'm going to say this for them. You have to do the same thing. You know, there are times when people really don't understand why a mother would walk out on a child. In my opinion, one is no better than the other. But I get it. Why it's, more of a big deal for mom to walk out than it is for dad to walk out. And it's actually not as common. But the same rules apply. Let the kids see that, she didn't want them. That she doesn't want to deal with them. And stop trying to spit poison into the game of, oh, your mama's a crackhead. And foolishness like that. Number one, a lot of us are telling stories to our kids and they're way too young to understand. Just be the best parent that you can be. Everything else, they'll see it. They'll see it. They'll understand it better than you think they do. And you know what? One day, when they're adults, they'll be grateful that you were there for them. That you didn't try to force their hand on just absolutely hating the other parent. And then they'll make up in their mind if they want to forgive that other person or not. 9 times out of 10, if you did the best thing that you could as a parent, they're not going to be dealing with that other person. Because there's no reason for them to. You don't have to force a child's hand by making sure that you talk about how bad of a parent the other person was. All you have to do is be the best that you can be yourself. Everything else will fall into place, trust me. Now, I am going to get off here because a lot of times when you're having these quote-unquote one-sided conversations with me, usually I'm in my office and I'm recording. Today I'm kind of moving around because I have things that I'm doing and getting together that I want to present to you guys outside of just doing this podcast. So if you follow me on Instagram, you'll be seeing those things come up. Or if you're following my page on Facebook, you'll be seeing notifications for those things that are going to be coming up soon. So you definitely want to follow me if you don't. Everything I have is under Tar Pit. It's @tarpit_radio on my Instagram. My page is Tar Pit Radio. I even have a @tarpit_fitness. Everything that I do is under Tar Pit. So I am easy to find. Alrighty, beautiful people. I'm going to go ahead and get off of here. And just to close out, remember, if you need help, if you need therapy, if you need assistance, reach out. Don't hate on your parents. They were doing what they could. Just talk to them or talk to somebody. Learn to let it go and to move on, because it does not help you at all to carry that with you for the rest of your life. And all it's going to do is hold you back. And even if they don't apologize, even if they don't feel they did anything wrong, have the conversation, forgive, and let it go for your own peace of mind and for your children, or for the children that you will have, or for your children's children, so that we can at some point break this cycle and do better. That's do this is because I just want to help other people to do better.